If you've been following on some with my videos, you'll see that what I recommend that you do is start off and try and understand what the end game is. What's the number that you're after? Are you after $1 million in 20 years? Are you after $7 million in 7 years? Or are you after somewhere more, or somewhere less, or somewhere in between? Once you know your number, and once you've done the calculations, and once you've thought about your lifestyle and calculate the number, I'm betting that that number will be big. And I'm betting that you'll be just a touch scared by that number. Most people are. And you've got a couple of choices. Either put your head down and go for it anyway, or maybe now is the time to do some budgeting. Most people budget what they spend on a weekly basis. I recommend that you do your budgeting now, and you probably never need to budget again if you do it this way. So what I recommend that you do is that you think about your number and how large it is. Let's say it's $3 million. There's only two things you can do if that number seems insurmountable to you. And the issue with the number is this. If you want to get from, say, $10,000 in the bank today to something like $3 million in 5 or 6 years, you're probably going to need a very large compound growth rate. There are online calculators that you can put your numbers into, and in 2 seconds, you'll know how large those compound growth rates are. And if you look at some of my posts on 7 million, 7 years, I'll give you some guidelines as to what sort of activities you need to undertake to get to your number. So for example, if you have a compound growth rate in excess of 50%, we know that the only way that you're likely to get there is by undertaking a business, starting an entrepreneurial endeavor. Now that may not suit you. You may be happy working in your job, want to do some real estate investing or some stock investing, and I'm here to tell you that you just simply won't achieve a 50% compound growth rate unless you get extremely lucky in your job and get promoted to CEO or something like that. So you might need to either rethink your activities or rethink your number. If you need to reduce your compound growth rate, how can you do it? Well, there's really only two ways. One is that you make your mountain smaller. By that I mean that if your number is $3 million, that you sit down and you look at ways to make that number $2 million or $1 million. So that would reduce your compound growth rate maybe to a number that you can achieve. For example, by investing in index funds over 20 or 30 years, we know that at a minimum you'll achieve 8% compound growth rate, maximum 14%, and most likely somewhere between 11 and 12%, not accounting for fees. So that gives you a guideline of what sort of compound growth rates you're looking at, and therefore what sort of number that you can achieve by undertaking those activities. I took the reverse view. My view was simply this. I had a number I had to achieve, and I was going to do anything to get there, and I took the approach that my number wasn't changeable. So I went overseas, started multiple businesses up, and eventually I was lucky enough to reach my number. But not everybody has that same mindset. So let's say that you do decide that you've got a 15% compound growth rate, but your number right now is a 50% compound growth rate number. The only thing you can do there is lower your number. Well, there's two things you can do, one of which is to lower your number. Instead of making it $3 million, as I said, maybe you make it $1 or $2 million. Now, how do you do that? Well, of course, it's tempting to go and look at all of our big purchases. So let's say you're allowed for $1 million house in a $3 million number. By only buying a $500,000 house, you've saved a $500,000. So your number now goes down from $3 million down to $2.5 million. But you can pretty quickly see that aside from chopping your house in half, there's not a lot there that you can do to take out big chunks from your number by not making those big expenses. Sure, you can buy cheaper cars, cheaper houses, and those are useful things that you probably need to think about doing, but probably for another reason I'll tell you in a minute. But I think you pretty quickly see that you won't take a number from $3 million down from a 50% compound growth rate down to, say, $1 or $2 million just by not buying a house or not buying cars. So there must be something else you can do, and of course, yes, there is. The answer is you need to look at those daily or weekly expenses that you're making. It's your lifestyle. And I'll tell you why, because every dollar that you spend on lifestyle, you multiply by 20 and by an inflation factor to get to your number. So let's say if your number is out 20 years, then you've really got to, every dollar you spend today, you need to double for inflation to allow for the 20 years and then multiply by 20. So every dollar you save out of your thinking today saves $40 from your number later on. So those are big cuts. It's a 40 times leverage. Now here's where buying a smaller house comes into it. Not so much that you might save $200,000 or $300,000 off the purchase of your house, but a smaller house gives you cheaper running costs, cheaper gas, cheaper electricity, cheaper lawn mowing, cheaper everything. And that money that you're saving multiplied by 40 probably gives you as big a benefit as buying a cheaper house in the first place. So that's where to be looking. If you think about joining a golf club or a tennis club or an expensive country club, maybe you chop those items off and start going back to the public golf course rather than having a $20,000 a year country club, because you know that's going to cost you $40,000. 20 times 2 is 40,000. 40,000 times 20 is 80,000, is $800,000 right there. There you go. So if you've got a $20,000 a year country club membership, that's probably contributes $800,000 if I got my numbers right towards your number. So you pretty quickly see that those are where the big savings are going to be made. Of course, then you start to think about, well, hang on, lifestyle. Maybe I need to do my overseas traveling. Maybe golf is really, really critical to me. Maybe that's what it's all about. You have one other choice, and this choice is probably a very sensible choice. If your number is too large, it's simply, and you can't cut it without compromising what you believe is your life's purpose, allow yourself more time to get there. Every 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, because of the power of compounding, gives you very powerful ability to reach that number by lowering your compound growth rate. So if you change your number from achieving in 5 years to achieving in 7 years or maybe 10 years, so compromise and maybe work 2, 3, 4, 5 years longer, you'll find that you can lower your compound growth rate dramatically. So those are really your two levers. If you don't want to compromise your lifestyle, if you don't want to compromise your number, push the date out. If you're willing to compromise your lifestyle, lower your number. If you're not willing to compromise both, then take yourself out of your comfort zone, do what I did, find the high returning activities that you need to do, learn all about them, and go for success. Celeste, it's /Nick, /Nick, then a space, and then type your name in. And that should just about do it. In fact, it didn't appear when I typed it in there, so /Nick, N-I-C-K, space, and Celeste. And that should do what you need to do.